Waycross presents an election forum. For state representative in the 28th District, there are two individuals running for one seat. They are, in alphabetical order, Jonathan Deaver and Jessica Miranda. And welcome to the 2016 Waycross election forum. This forum for the state representative in the 28th District. I'm Jason Grisgoric, your host and moderator for this evening's event. Tonight, I am very fortunate to have both candidates with me this evening. To my left, Jonathan Deaver, and to my right, Jessica Miranda. Glad that you could both join us this evening for tonight's debate.
Thank you.
Today's forum is rather simple. I will be asking both of our candidates for a 2-minute opening statement, after which I will open up the phone lines and emails to our voting audience at home. Questions will be asked to everyone, and I will give the lowdown on how you can get involved in this democratic process after our opening statements, starting with Mr. Deaver.
Thank you, Jason, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and thank you to the Waycross community for hosting this event this evening. It is a privilege and an honor to be here. About 2 years ago, we sat in this very room and had a wonderful conversation about the issues that were facing the 20th House District. And we were looking at issues that were dramatically important to so many people across the district. We were looking at a 25% cut in our schools because of the TPP loss. We were trying to find a way to deal with the heroin epidemic. We were struggling with ways to help folks who were finding their way out of a human trafficking situation. We were looking at ways to deal with some of the police violence and the violence in the streets. And we were also looking at ways to clean up our neighborhoods that got hit by the foreclosure crisis, specifically the homes where the pipes have been taken out and become a blight and a nuisance to our neighborhoods, decreasing property values and eliminating the ability to make ends meet in our communities. And after listening to the people of the district and walking through and talking to people and listening to their concerns, we delivered on results. And tonight we'll talk about those.
Wonderful. Thank you. Ms. Miranda, 2 minutes to you as well.
Thank you, Mr. Grisgoric, and the rest of the Waycross staff for having us here tonight. I appreciate you hosting, and it's a pleasure and honor to be here to speak directly to our constituents of the 20th District. My name is Jessica Miranda, and I'm a candidate running for state representative here in the 20th District. I am a homeowner, business owner, and currently an elected public official in Forest Park. I serve my community right now, and I own my home and business in Forest Park. And being an entrepreneur, mother of 3, loving wife, and all of these attributes, I think gives me the right attitude and the right practical and logical focus to serve you on a larger level at the State House as your state representative. So I'm here this evening to answer questions, talk about my view on the issues, and see how we can move forward from here and make Ohio great for all of its residents.
Wonderful. Thank you both for opening it up. And now I'm going to open it up to the voting audience at home. If you're watching tonight on September 27th, please join in. The phone number, 825-3971, or the email live@waycross.org. All questions will be answered by the two candidates. Some rules of the law here. Of course, all questions must be an open question. Please, no pointed questions. And of course, please, when the fine call handler does take your call, please give your first name only and part of town, as well as a general idea of the question in which you will be asking our candidates. And with that, I will start off with Ms. Miranda on the first question from myself. What are the top 3 issues you feel are affecting the 28th District currently?
Thank you, Jason. I'd like to start off with public safety. I think that's first and foremost important, especially right now in the current season of what we have going on. We have a proposal before us that directly affects several of our 20th District neighborhoods, and that is the proposed Duke Energy gas transmission pipeline. Duke Energy is trying to install a first-of-its-kind 30-inch natural gas transmission pipeline through some of our most prominent neighborhoods here in the 28th District. I am the only candidate who has opposed this outright and continues to fight with the group making this issue apparent and educating our residents here in the district about this pipeline issue, because a lot of our folks don't know anything about it. I'm the only candidate that would legislate for a safety zone away from schools, places of worship, and hospitals. This is a huge issue right now for our district, and I think we need to talk about this because it is one of the most prevalent things affecting our residents now, and I will support our residents and fight and oppose this as I have so far during the race. Another thing is, as a responsible gun owner myself, I do hold a concealed carry permit, and I do support our Second Amendment right, but I believe there needs to be background checks on all firearm purchases. I just think this is common sense legislation, and that's something you can count on me for. I would expand resources for our current community response teams to deal with our heroin epidemic. I do not believe incarceration or lengthy incarceration is going to solve our heroin epidemic. We have to do things in our jails with our addicted. We have to give them recovering pods. We have to do something else to deal with our heroin epidemic. Second thing is economic growth. Ohio needs to invest in industries that have large growth potential and long futures. As a small business owner myself, I know what it's like to start a small business and the challenges that face here in Ohio. So I would make it as easy as possible. I would support waiving all filing and registration fees for new startup businesses for first-time Ohio business owners.
And that's 2 minutes, Ms. Miranda.
Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome. 2 minutes to you as well, Mr. Deaver. Same
No.
question, top 3 issues that are affecting the 28th District.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate the opportunity to address the public, and especially about the issues that not only we've completed, but things that we're continuing to work on. In the 20th House District, there's a lot of things that we need to do to improve our communities. We've made a lot of good headway. First and foremost, I think we have a very, very serious issue dealing with the heroin epidemic in the county. As a legislator, we have worked diligently with stakeholders and Republicans, Democrats across the board, and we've effectively doubled the treatment beds and the capability that we have here in Hamilton County to deal with our addicted. It's a huge step forward to double that treatment facility. This is dealing with folks that have ongoing addiction problems, that need the treatment and need first response. The second thing that we're working on in the heroin space is trying to find a way to give judges discretion again so that they can take away the punishment that would occur on a user and focus really on the folks that are polluting our kids and putting these dangerous drugs in our community. The second thing is really compounding on the work that we did in the first General Assembly, which is providing the additional resources for our funding of our infrastructure projects. We began that process and brought a lot of money to our district. And third and finally is continuing to work towards reforming our business statutes to bring brand new businesses here to Ohio. It's the new businesses that create jobs, but we also need to support the small businesses like the ones my wife and I own.
All right. Well, of course, I like to always build off of those because those are great stepping stones to where we need to go. Mr. Deaver, you'll be the first to go with this question. You brought up, and you both touched on, obviously, infrastructure. You started to, Ms. Miranda, I understand, and Mr. Deaver, you had gone into it. Let's discuss that. What is the portion of the 28th District that's holding new business back, and what can we do to bring new business in?
Great question. Thank you, Jason. In the last 18 months, we've made great strides. We've brought 30,000 new jobs back into Hamilton County. A large number of them have landed inside of the 28th, and we've done that by providing opportunities and tax incentives, but also providing the basic core infrastructure needs. One of the things that you learn when I got into Columbus is that these infrastructure projects sometimes take 8 to 15 years, and it takes some time to get that basic piece in place. And very fortunately, I'm also on the Transportation Infrastructure Board here in the county, and we've finally got some money for the 20th District for the first time in some of the communities, believe it or not, since 1976, which is before the first Star Wars. So we're looking at projects to fix the infrastructure inside of Deer Park. We've secured funds for the Ronald Reagan corridor in Montgomery. We've secured funds to take care of the flood problems that are occurring down in Reading and the Bridal District. So we're making good headways to get our basic infrastructure back to where it needs to be. For far too long in our district, we've been ignored, and it's a wonderful thing to see that turning around.
All right. Ms. Miranda, 2 minutes to you. Same question.
Thank you, Jason. As a resident, it's good to hear about these things Mr. Deaver is saying, but this is the first time I've heard about all of those restorations and things about the flooding in the Reading Bridal District that's happening. I would like to point out that Mr. Deaver does sit on the Infrastructure Committee up at the State House and has introduced absolutely zero legislation other than naming a highway after somebody in his 2 years here as state rep. And I would fight for you, and I would fight harder for the residents of the 20th District to make these processes move faster, and that way we can get what we we need to get done here in the 20th District and help out our residents and our businesses. Circling back to talk about infrastructure, as far as it relates to roads and highways, I would look to improve our public roads and highways. Many roadways here in the 20th District need lane expansions and off-ramps to handle population growth. We need to fix our countless obsolete bridges. Here in Hamilton County and in other areas, we've experienced natural disaster conditions due to the sewer systems and waterways. It's my understanding that our state representatives here in Hamilton County can work with our Hamilton County Commission and make our sewers and waterways more suitable for our current population and get these problems fixed, just like just what happened with our neighbors down in the Norwood and St. Bernard area with the flooding a couple weeks ago. This shouldn't be happening to our communities, and we need a state representative who's going to partner with our county partners, being that of the commission and others, not limited to the commission, to fix these issues and really work together to make a common sense solution so that we don't have all of these personal losses for our residents.
Mr. Deaver, you have a minute to respond if you so choose.
No, thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. That's the wonderful part about Hamilton County. We have a great collaborative process that works with all three commissioners. Just this Monday, we met and talked about how we're going to find funding and resources and prioritizing infrastructure projects throughout the county. These are public hearings that are held every Monday, once a month. With all the commission, the various communities are involved in these processes, and part of it is getting enough funds to roll these projects out, and they take time. And the real issue is advocacy at the local level, but also during this period of time right now is when those transportation budgets are being determined by the administration. So by the time you get sworn in, most of those budgets are finalized. So right now we're working and laying that groundwork for additional funding instead of just House Bill 64, which we passed, and the prior House Bill 58, which provided those resources that we're leveraging right now to take care of the communities that need it the most.
Ms. Miranda, this question goes to you. Starting off, you've mentioned infrastructure. Obviously, the big infrastructure most people see is the infamous Brent Spence Bridge or the like thereof. Mr. Deaver brought up some other great projects that are going on that need some work as well. In the 20th District, what are you looking forward to try to make that infrastructure a possibility, as both of you have said?
Thank you, Jason, for that question. Well, like I touched on before, there's a lot of different infrastructure projects that we should be and could be working on. Our rural and high-density urban communities need access to broadband internet technology. That's another piece of important infrastructure that we should be discussing. We need to repair manufacturing centers for new businesses such as renewable energy technology. All of these things work together to grow jobs and to make it better for our residents here in our 28th District. That is how I would focus on infrastructure here in the 20th District.
Mr. Deaver, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Jason. I believe the question was about the Brent Spence Bridge, if I was correct.
I did not necessarily include, but could include.
Sure.
It was the elephant in the room. So.
Sure. The Brent Spence Bridge has been a topic of conversation for quite some time, not only at the state, the federal level. And we have to work in partnership with our neighbors to the south in Kentucky and also with our federal partners. So we have to have a good working relationship with not only the governor of Indiana, the governor of Ohio, but also our federal folks that represent us in this region. We also know that the federal government has not produced a transportation budget in the last 8 years, which makes it more of a challenge to get those resources turned back to Ohio specifically for projects such as the bridge. It's a very expensive project. You're looking at about $2.5 billion, and we have to find a way to raise the funds to pay for that. In the meantime, what we need to be focusing on is working with partnerships with each of our individual communities, identifying the projects that they're prioritizing, and help them begin that seed money process. They need a couple of dollars today and a few dollars tomorrow, and then it begins to snowball. So places like Deer Park that haven't had the opportunity to get their downtown fixed since 1976 are going to have a brand new road and have the economic development that comes with it.
All right. Ms. Miranda, you have a minute to respond if you so choose.
I think we pretty much agree on the last piece of that regarding the Brent Spence Bridge, so we can move on to the next question,
Okay.
Jason.
Fine. Mr. Deaver, obviously the bridge was a big component of transportation. We've been mentioning transportation and the like. We have seen early on, prior to your tenure in the 28th District, that there was some money given for transportation, and Ohio chose to do other things differently. Mm-hmm. What should we look forward to in the 28th District when it comes to transportation? Because, as you said, it is a vital means, considering 75 is the artery of the county. 2 minutes to you to respond.
Thank you, Jason. In the 28th District, we have a lot of major arteries, not only 75, but 71, 275, Ronald Reagan, and a lot of these projects have been ignored for some time. The I-71 corridor specifically was looking to receive $187 million, roughly, give or take a bit, when Governor Strickland was in office, and he redirected those funds to a different part of the state. So right now what we're trying to do is advocate for the funds that we should be receiving in our region, but more importantly, laying the seed foundation so that we can work with the TID, so that we can work with OKI and our regional partners. And these are the counties that are in not only Ohio, but Kentucky and Indiana, and work with our regional and state partners to make sure that we have a comprehensive plan. So it's one thing to help seed some of these smaller projects, but we also need to work together collaboratively to make sure that the major corridors, the rail, the shipping corridors, and those things also are meeting the standards and the needs of what the district needs.
Ms. Miranda, same question.
Thank you, Jason. Collaboration and partnerships is always the first and foremost important issue to getting anything done as far as any governmental action is concerned. As I mentioned before, going back to Interstate 75 and the various other roadways that we have here in the 20th District, many of our roadways need lane expansions and off-ramps to handle all of our population growth, and a lot of these haven't been updated for quite some time. Some of that is happening now. We need to make that happen faster because, as you can see, 75 becomes a parking lot in the morning when rush hour traffic to and from jobs. And then we also should look at other types of transportation. Getting our residents to and from work is one of the most basic things we should be doing for our residents and our constituents and our taxpayers, effectively using those taxpayer monies for those projects and finding where we can supplement that and bring that from and bring it back to the 20th District.
Steve?
Thank you, Jason. One of the things that we need to really look at when we're talking about accelerating the pace of the projects is most of the reasons why these projects take so long is the environmental impact studies that are occurring at the federal level. So sometimes you'll see some orange barrels and you're wondering why those processes aren't working or why they're not going fast enough, and there's some environmental rules and regulations that apply. Perhaps they found a fossil, perhaps they found some sort of remnant of a civilization, then that requires some additional time. So a lot of these processes are in place to secure and protect environmental concerns, but also to make sure that we're not destroying our history. And one of the challenges that we also have is making sure that when there is a project and it is moving and it's going on time, that we're holding the developers accountable to their timelines. So as we move forward in these processes, I think we also have to be cognizant of the federal regulations and the federal rules that require us to take our time and to make sure that we're protecting the environment as we're putting these roads into our neighborhoods and communities.
All right. It was brought up by both that there needs to be other ideas. Collaboration was a word, and of course, Ms. Miranda, you brought up the infamous parking lot on 75. There needs to be other means of transportation. Going into the looking at the 28th District, is the 28th District ready for newer, modern means of transportation? Starting with you.
Okay, thank you, Jason. So the question is the 20th District ready? In terms of being ready and willing to do something, I think we're always ready, but is our infrastructure ready at this point in time to talk about those other opportunities for transportation to and from work for our residents? I don't know. We are kind of north-central Hamilton County here in our county layout, so to be able to have the same types of transportation that they do in the more urban areas in downtown Cincinnati would require some work out here in the more suburban area of Hamilton County. So I think in terms of readiness, we might be close to being there, but all of these things would definitely need some more partnership and collaboration, and it would certainly be a large project. But it's definitely something we can do and something I wouldn't back down from, and to have that creative conversation is something I'm looking forward to.
Mr. Deaver.
The wonderful thing about the Hamilton County area is we have a lot of talent. We have a depth of talent. And inside the district over in Evendale, there is a project where they're working on a brand new type of rail that costs less than putting in road. It's very encouraging, and it's something that I think we're going to see some investment in someday in the future as they perfect that technology. But more importantly, what the things that we can do right now that's making a big impact is that in the state budget and the legislature, we're empowering and helping our bus system here, our metro system, become more flexible, more economically viable, more friendly, giving them the opportunity to reach out in different ways and use that public transportation in new ways. As an example, there's an express line that takes you from downtown up to the Kings Island exit, and there's express lines that take you from downtown up to 75 corridor. So working together collaboratively and taking advantage and leveraging our assets and leveraging the intelligence and the innovation that's right here in the 28th, I believe that the transportation issues of tomorrow, the transportations of the next generation are going to be invented right here inside the district.
And Ms. Miranda, you can finish the question.
Sure. If I may kind of talk about another collaboration idea, since you touched on that in the first part of your question, Jason. I think Mr. Deaver is a huge supporter of the fracking industry when we talk about projects that we propose or do with our roads and our highways, that they may have some type of an economic impact. But fracking definitely has more of an economic impact than highways and roads and bridges does. I think one of the things that I bring to the table that would make a huge difference would involve both infrastructure and public education, because right now Ohio is giving huge tax breaks to those fracking companies and that fracking industry. If we could take away those tax breaks to the fracking companies, we could invest that into renewable technologies, and we could also use that as a sustainable source of income for our public school districts who are suffering with tax cuts and schools of choice taking away much needed public monies and relying on a system, a gaming system that is not sustainable.
Thank you. Well, it was sort of brought up, Mr. Deaver, in Ms. Miranda's opening statement about the pipeline. She's brought up about fracking. I was getting down to that. It seemed like a perfect segue here. Sure. When we're looking at things that come in to either help or hinder the district, regardless of how you look at what is going on, is this something that needs to happen, the pipeline, fracking in general? We see this throughout the lower states, lower counties of Ohio. Is it time for the 28th district or Hamilton County itself to be a part of these measures? And I'll start with you for that question.
Well, thank you, Jason. One of the jobs that I have, the most important job I have, is actually listening and keeping an open mind. I'm a lifelong learner. I went to college. I paid my way through. I had 3 jobs. I paid my way through grad school, paid my way through law school. And every day when I wake up, I'm trying to learn more and more and more. And sometimes when we talk about these issues, they're very complicated. And it's really easy to throw a political label on them rather than focusing on the underlying policy. And specifically with the pipeline in the district, when the first issue came up, I came out, I expressed the concerns of the community, wrote a letter to the Power Siting Board, indicated that we were deeply concerned with the public safety component, specifically because of the size of the line, but also because of the environmental impact, taking away some of these old trees and these ancient trees in these communities, and devastating the look and the feel of the community. And we reached out and we made that very well known early. But the reality of it is if there's a definitive infrastructure need, we need to be open-minded to the standpoint that we take all sides into consideration and not rush to judgment. And what I've done and what I've worked diligently with as my time in the legislature is listening first. And at the end of the day, trying to find an answer that works for everyone. And when you can find something where you have consensus, where you get everybody together on the same page, everybody's educated and understands the need or the lack thereof, then everybody has an opportunity to make an intelligent decision for themselves. And so I think when you're talking about basic infrastructure, when you're talking about putting a 30-inch line, I think for folks out there, they know that Duke has changed that now. It's down to 20, which is a nice concession, but there's still more work to be done. There's a process that we have to follow. So those are some things that I think are very important, that we educate people fully on the issue, that they understand what's going on, and they understand why these things are being proposed. And at the end of the day, it's about advocating for the people that you're representing.
Ms. Miranda.
Thank you, Jason. I would like to perhaps steal a line from Mr. Deaver and say that the reality of the situation with the pipeline is that in May, he wrote a letter that said this project, undertaken with the best of intentions, needs more discussion. However, that's not leadership, and that's not the type of leadership you should want representing you in the State House. That's refusing to side with us and your constituents because you don't want to upset Duke Energy, which, might I add, contributes to the campaign of Jonathan Deaver. This type of issue is kind of what I like to call that he's trying to have his cake and eat it too, if you will. Duke has no further public hearings scheduled at the moment, so you can't say at this point that you're opposing it. Because if you were, you would be taking a stronger stance as the state representative representing the schools, the hospitals, the places of worship, the kids and the families in this district along the orange route, which is the one that they've proposed to the Ohio Siting Board, and protecting the families in this district. Because if one of these pipelines blow up, there is huge damage in a huge radius that our families cannot afford. And there are many other options that Duke can take and many other places they could put this pipeline away from homes, away from these so-called trees of historic value, away from schools, hospitals, places of worship, you name it. It is not the right proposal for our community, and I am standing against it in full opposition.
Okay. And Mr. Deaver, if you so choose.
Thank you, Jason. Again, I think it's important to point out the obvious. There's a lot of things that you can say and do about infrastructure issues. They're very toxic from the standpoint that people get upset very easily over them. But I'm working with my Democratic colleagues in the legislature who share these routes. These were our letters together to the Power Siting Board, to the Cincinnati Enquirer, expressing the concerns of the community. We've made our voice known that the public safety is first and foremost, that we want to get educated on this and understand what's going on. We want some concessions out of the gate. We've gotten those concessions, but right now there is a legal process with public hearings and an opportunity to be heard by everyone in the district, elected official, resident, and that information is going out and getting to the residents of the areas. This orange line goes through my backyard, and so I'm paying attention to it diligently and carefully and making sure that the elected officials of the area know about it, understand when they have the right to make their public impact and have their voice heard throughout this process.
Thank you.
May I respond, Jason?
I will allow for one extra response. That
Thank
is
you.
fine.
I think the public officials of our district are aware of it because there are people that are making them aware of it. The city of Cincinnati and other local municipalities in our 28th House District has passed resolutions in full opposition to this pipeline. So they're already opposing the pipeline, the residents are opposing the pipeline, yet no one is listening. So if you support the pipeline because you have an obligation to your donors, then just say it and we can move on. Take a position and stop straddling the fence. It's our residents' safety. This all boils down to public safety, and that's a state representative's job. First and foremost is to protect the public safety of our constituents.
All right. We are halfway through tonight's forum, so if you are joining us on the 27th of September, I completely urge you to join in. 825-3971 is our phone number. Live at waycross.org is the email. All questions will be answered. I still have a number, and we still have about 25 minutes to go, so please join in tonight. Jessica, we were already discussing, the possibilities of fracking the pipeline and things of that nature. Let's look a little bit more on a positive note and a positive side that there are other means of fuel, other means of energy and things of that nature. Ohio has always been an innovator and a state of moving forward. 28th District is no stranger to manufacture and the like. Is the 28th District a green place to be? Jessica?
Thank you for that question, Jason. I do think the 20th District is a green place to be. We have many communities here in the 20th District, Green Hills and Deer Park and Forest Park. We all have beautiful green areas, and I am very, very proud to have the Sierra Club endorsement here locally for environmental causes, and that is definitely something of utmost concern and importance to me here in the 28th District, and I would be the representative to make sure those thoughts and all of those issues, including environmental safety, public safety, and the like of, would be protected from my leadership and my representation here in the 20th District.
Mr. Deaver.
Thank you, Jason. We have a lot of great innovators inside of our district. It's been a place for machine tool manufacturing, for innovation in aerospace technology, and there's a lot of folks that are working on a lot of things in our district that are forward-thinking on how we can do public transportation, but a lot of our communities have adopted as well. In Sycamore Township, there's a large, vast array of solar panels that is there collecting energy and helping subsidize the electric bills that go towards the Schuler Center, and many other areas across the county and even in the district that are focused on trying to find a way to reduce costs and reduce their footprint. But more importantly, I think what we have to do too is look at the comprehensive energy policy of the state. And as the federal government tells us that we can't burn certain types of fossil fuels for energy sources, Ohio is a place where we need diversity of energy. We don't have sun all the time. We don't have wind all the time. And so we're going to need a good mixture of energy resources. We have a lot of businesses here in Hamilton County that rely on those peak performance times, specifically in the winter. They need energy in order to keep their businesses going, to heat their buildings. One of the fascinating things about Ohio is that we're number 3rd as far as a state in manufacturing, but that also means that we consume a lot of energy and a lot of electricity. So we have to find a way to make sure that we're supplying those businesses that hire the folks in our communities the energy resources they need to continue to manufacture and provide those jobs.
Jessica, same question.
So I would just like to touch on something I mentioned earlier regarding the fracking industry, since we're on this topic of environmental issues. The fracking industry right now, as it is receiving large tax benefits in the form of tax cuts. Instead of giving big tax breaks to fracking companies, we need to invest in renewable technologies. And we also can use this money to invest back into our public education, which is so suffering right now for their resources that they need to operate our public education facilities. So this is a creative idea and something that we could do right now that could put these resources back into our public districts that need those resources. They need that help. They need a sustainable way to fund them in which we don't have to have so much of the burden on our property owners and our homeowners here in the 20th District.
Hey, Mr. Deaver, if you care to choose.
Yep, thank you, Jason. In the fracking space, there's this town called East Liverpool, and when you go there, it used to be in its heyday that they made a lot of China. It was the China capital of the United States, and they made China there for generations. And my great-grandfather, he relocated to East Liverpool, Ohio, to work in sales there, and their town was about 75,000 people, and now it's at about 11,000. And the number one thing that they generate now is a heroin problem, Jason. It's a problem. There's one restaurant, and it's a fast food place that makes hot dogs and hamburgers. And there are a couple of successful businesses. One is the Social Security Administration, 2 funeral homes that is burying people from overdoses, and a couple of law firms, and then a Medicaid clinic. And that's what they have. And the fracking industry right now, it's not booming because of the economy. There's no demand for it. They're paying all the taxes that any other business pays, and they're also paying a frack tax and an excise tax. So when we're talking about funding things, we hear a lot about our public schools not being funded enough. But right here in Winton Woods, they're running a surplus of 33%. We put $1 billion extra in public education above and beyond any time in the history of Ohio.
And that's your
so we're fully funding our education.
Thank you. Mr. Deaver, you volleyed me up for 2 questions that I could have gone either way. I'm going to actually go to the heroin question because you had brought that up, and it became kind of integral to the way that question was being answered. Heroin has become a grave epidemic within the United States, within the 20th District, within our county. What are some means in which we can look towards? I know that we have things like the Good Sam bill and things of that nature, but is that enough? And what, as the 28th member of the 28th District, can we or you do?
Yeah, great question. The heroin epidemic has hit every community, every town, every city, and almost every family in the state of Ohio, and specifically in Hamilton County, we have a real problem. We have a couple of great bipartisan efforts down in Hamilton County. We've got the Coalition Task Force, but also in Columbus, we are looking at multiple ways of dealing with this. Representative Sprague and I have been discussing at great detail and also have passed lots of legislation to provide the treatment resources that are necessary. And here in Hamilton County, we have doubled the ability for the Center for Addiction Treatment Services to provide the detox and the beds that are necessary to provide treatment. We fully funded and exceeded our funding expectations in that regard, and it's wonderful that we have that piece. But also in this is an education component. We need to reach out and educate and teach people about the harms affecting this. But the last piece that we have to do is we have to give judges the discretion to pick apart the people who are actually bringing this poison into our community, the ones that are lacing it into marijuana, the ones that are lacing fentanyl and carfentanil in it, knowing that people will die. We have to hold these folks responsible for their behavior as well. So not only do we need to worry about the addicted and treat the addicted and take care of them, which we've been doing a lot of work in the General Assembly through expansion of Medicaid, dollars went into that as well. So there's a lot of pieces in there that are coming together, partially from the legislative perspective and some from the executive, that are coming together and working with our local partners to address the issue. There's no one-size-fits-all, I'm afraid, but we have to chip away at each piece and try to cohesively and collectively work together. In Hamilton County, one of the sad things is that the heroin now, the overdoses they're seeing exceeds alcohol for the very first time, and it's climbing and growing and getting worse. And it's a problem that we all need to work together on, not only at the local level with our educators, but also law enforcement, our medical community, and our legislators.
Ms. Miranda, same
Thank you,
question.
Jason. I do think we agree on a piece of this heroin epidemic and relates to we need to continue collaborations and conversations because the heroin epidemic is not a one-size-fits-all. This actually is very personal to me. We just lost someone very close to us personally in our family due to an overdose of heroin. So this touches on a personal basis for me, as I'm sure it does many, many other residents in Hamilton County and across Ohio. As I mentioned earlier, I would expand the resources for these community response teams and these collaboration teams to help fight the heroin epidemic. I believe a huge root cause of this starts in the mental health area of this. We need to start educating in our schools. We need to start talking about the heroin epidemic and talking about the other creative ways, as far as mental health is concerned, to help our residents and to help people suffering from this heroin epidemic. Mr. Deaver supports increasing incarceration times for people who suffer from being addicted to heroin. I simply just don't think that that's appropriate. I don't think throwing someone in jail for a longer period of time is going to help. We need more beds for the recovery pods. We need more of all of those things that are going to help and increase the likelihood of us to conquer this epidemic here in our county and in the 28th district. So this question touches on a personal basis for me, and I do think there are parts of this issue that we agree upon, but there's other issues and other pieces of this issue rather that we really need to focus more exclusively on instead of just incarcerating our folks addicted to heroin.
Mr. Deaver.
Thank you, Jason.
Expand.
In the General Assembly, we've worked diligently to make sure that we've provided the resources necessary to treat the addicted. But what we also have done is answer the call of prosecuting attorneys across the state, the Prosecuting Attorneys Association, the judges in the county who are crying out for the ability and the flexibility to have some judicial discretion to take the suppliers. And what we're talking about are people that carry 3.5 years of personal use on their person in order to be able to punish them the same way they punish someone who's carrying crack cocaine and powder cocaine. It treats it the same. And that's what they were clamoring for, was the ability to treat it the same as those drugs. Before that, they couldn't. And there is no person who's using heroin that's carrying 3.5 years of personal use on their possession. It's just not true, and it's not fair. And what we need to be doing is focusing on the people who truly need the services, and which we are doing, but also hold people responsible for transporting mass quantities into our state that's polluting our kids and finding its way into our schools.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Miranda, if you'd like to expand once more.
I think I'm okay, Jason. Thank you.
Ms. Miranda, a question comes to you in continuation with said conversation with heroin. Obviously, heroin is a very scary epidemic. But the other epidemic that we're dealing with, and it's something that's almost benign, is obviously healthcare. And how do we take care of those who are, the boomers are getting older, and the boomers' parents are now leaving us. Those great war heroes are leaving us. How do we take care of them as Xers and Ys, and the boomer and taking them all together? What does the 28th district have in store for helping with healthcare?
Thank you for that question, Jason. And focusing on healthcare, I believe that is something that I actually do agree with Governor Kasich on when he did approve our Medicaid expansion here in Ohio. I really believe that that helped several taxpayers and constituents in the 20th district because it helped, I believe the number was somewhere around 800,000 Ohioans across the state. So that is something I do believe that is very important to the 28th district. Without that, there would be many folks without Medicaid and without health care and without access to the necessary treatment that they need, whether it's due to a heroin addiction or just regular health care, period. So that is something I agree with the State Assembly and the legislature here in our great state of Ohio on, and something that I think we need to look into maintaining, sustaining, and if needed or necessary, perhaps expanding in the future.
Mr. Deaver.
Healthcare is always a major concern, and it's a major cost. The costs of healthcare are increasing. In the state budget, it's over 53% of all the money that we spend. And so we're always looking for creative ways of trying to find ways to lower costs for hardworking families and for small businesses. And one of the things that we did in this last budget, believe it or not, it seems really simple, but it actually is working very well, is we mandated that all healthcare providers have to disclose their pricing up front before you get services. And that law will take effect in January 1 of this coming year. And the reason why we did that is we believe that competition will also help drive down costs, but it also empowers us as individuals, it empowers you and me and everyone in this room to make healthcare decisions based on the actual cost. And we're already seeing reductions in the cost of care at the state level, but also at the local level. And because of that, we were able to shore up our public education system to levels and fund them at levels that have never been done before in the state of Ohio, and made education a priority for our K through 12 and our colleges, our college kids. And so it's a win-win for everyone. And I think that's one of the big issues that we have to do is get control of those costs and help and find ways to reduce the costs on average working folks so they have an opportunity to have more of their money to spend in the way that they see fit. But small businesses like mine, the one my wife has, these healthcare costs are very expensive, and they're a drain on resources, and they're going higher and higher and higher. That's one of the things that we're doing at the state level. And we also have to work with our federal partners to reform the way they're administering the cost of care and the Medicaid reimbursements so that it's fair for doctors, that it's fair for consumers, and we're providing the best care that we possibly can.
Ms. Miranda?
Thank you, Jason. I would like to touch on the last comment regarding education. So education funding here in Ohio may be at a high, it may be at an all-time high according to the data, but it's still not enough. I am a locally elected official for a public school here in our district, and it is not enough. We do not have the necessary resources we need to educate children, and anyone in the education industry can tell you this. Ohio is receiving somewhere around $75 million from the federal budget, and this is going to private and charter schools. So I ask why, if the charters are getting such federal money, why take it away from public schools, and why can't public schools have that same support? So I would streamline assessment testing and strive to have state funding that helps alleviate homeowner property taxes, because at the end of the day, questions like these need to be asked at the state legislature level. Why is the burden falling on the backs of our property owners here in the 20th district and all across Ohio to fund our public schools? And we have to find creative ways to make sustainable, reliable funding resources for our public schools.
And Mr. Deaver, if you care to cap the question.
Well, thank you, Jason. In the state of Ohio, we made great strides in this last budget. The biggest issue that we were facing was literally a 25% cut in public education for schools that were on TPP. And it was a great fight, and we brought members from the district by busloads up to Columbus and advocated for a change in the way we do our foundation formula. And between the House Bill 64 and Senate Bill 208, we made those changes and have a solid funding model that will help schools get off of cap and guarantee and free them up. The reality of it is that the way the funding model is working is that if you're a school system that doesn't have those property values, the state is subsidizing it at higher rates. It's $7,500 for the schools that need it most, down to $2,000 for the other schools. We have more kids, less kids today actually, in our public schools than we did 10 years ago. It's 100,000 less. So we're increasing the amount of spending that we're providing, and we're making it accessible and for all kids across the state of Ohio, which at the end of the day is what matters.
Mr. Deaver, you go right into the next question, which is education. we started to talk about what needs to be done in the 28th District, Ohio, and Hamilton County. What can you, as representative, do to help make that change?
Oh, thank you, Jason. There's a couple of things that we're exploring as a General Assembly. I know that going back into the final term or the final session of Governor Kasich's administration, this concept of changing the funding formula may become another reality. And we need a strong voice from the 28th who's got a proven track record of making sure that we've received all of our funds. Many schools like Winton Woods got an increase in the funding formula to the tune of $2 million. Same thing with other schools across the district. They received more money than ever before, and they were held harmless as it relates to the phase-out of tangible personal property tax. And that's one of the things that we also have to look at is the diversity of resources that can come into the school system so that the net dollars stay the same and that they don't change in a negative fashion. We're working very diligently. We've reformed charter schools, and in the last few months, we've seen 12 of these non-performing schools shut down. And quite frankly, if those same standards were applied to public education, which they're not, to the standard public schools, we would see a lot of those shutting down as well. So we have a lot of work to do to make sure that our public schools have the resources that they need, that the teachers have the equipment and the materials that they need to teach our children. But at the end of the day, we need to work with our communities and make sure that our parents are also involved in that educational process. A successful child requires not only a good teacher and a good school system, but they also require someone that actually cares about them and that's going to work with them. And throughout the 28th District, we do have some challenges in some of our school systems where up to 40 different original languages are spoken, where families are different from different points of origin, but also some of the experiences that they have. And we need to support these families and the school systems that need these resources the most.
Ms. Miranda,
Thank you, Jason. So I probably sound like a broken record now, but I would just like to start out with talking about the TPP tax, or the tangible personal property tax. That is only a temporary piece of legislation. What was restored under the TPP tax may benefit a school district like a Princeton, but it doesn't necessarily benefit a Winton Woods school district. So all of our school districts here in the 20th District are very different. They have different layouts. They have different, boundaries. They serve different students. They serve different families. All of that said, we do a wonderful job serving all of those different cultures, those different communities, the different socioeconomic statuses. We do this all successfully, and we have some very, very, very good public school districts here in the 20th District, which is why I don't understand at the state level charter schools aren't held to the same accountability standards as public schools are. Charter school teachers aren't paid to the same standard as public school teachers are. It's a very, very different type of system, and I think it is not benefiting our children. It's not benefiting our communities. It's not benefiting our property owners because they're the ones bearing the tax burden. And I think we really need to work hard to find a stable and sustainable revenue source for our public school districts, and that's something that has not been talked about on a state level, at least to the tune that it should be, and someone needs to be up there and sent to the State House to fight for that, and that's the type of state representative I would be, one with a proven track record of leadership in the public school district that I serve locally, and can talk about these things with practical and logical questions and get these things done and find that sustainable revenue source so that we don't have to keep going back and forth on this every time the budget comes up for approval.
Because of time, 30 seconds, Chair.
Thank you, Jason. The reality of it is we have a wonderful formula that we put into Senate Bill 208, and it alleviates a lot of the pressures and concerns with the tangible personal property tax phase out. We have a lot of work to do. House Bill 2 held charter schools accountable for the very first time. Again, 12 of those non-performing schools are no longer in existence, and the standards on public charter schools are more stringent than any other schools in the state of Ohio. It was a priority of our legislature under House Bill 2. We have a lot more work to do, and I have a proven track record of getting it done for the 28th House District.
Ms. Miranda, if you'd like to cap the question.
Sure. There may be 12 school districts that were shut down, but there are way more than 12 charter school districts that are shut down on a daily basis here in Ohio because they have not met some type of standard. But let's also remember that before these charter schools are shut down, they're still taking tax dollars. They're still using tax monies from the property owners that are generated from Ohioans to run their charter school business, and that's what it is, a for-profit business, and using our children as test subjects to see if their school or their for-profit system that they've put in place can survive or not.
And that's 30 seconds. Thank you. I want to be able to give one final question, and it's a 30-second answer, quick and kind of quick and dirty here. What do you believe it takes to make a representative in the 28th District? Ms. Miranda, I'll start with you.
Sure. Thank you, Jason. I love that question. I think first and foremost it takes someone who has integrity to represent this district, and it also takes someone who uses, runs. I am a homeowner and a business owner and a locally elected official in the city in which I live. My children attend the public schools that I serve. My business serves working and middle-class families in my district. Mr. Deaver's businesses that he and his wife own are outside of Hamilton County, which means they're outside of our district. I provide jobs to folks here in our district, and I am homegrown here in Forest Park, and I will represent you with integrity, and because I am local and I know the needs of my constituents, I will do that to the best of my capability.
Thank you. 30 seconds to you, Mr. Deaver, as well.
Thank you, Jason. It's been a great privilege and honor to serve the people of the 28th. 28th is my home. It's where I grew up. It's where I'm raising my family. It's a great place. The singular issue I think that is important is your ability to listen and not be partisan initially. Or ever, really. You need to be someone who is going to listen, take people's issues for what they are, work them, make them effective, and find a solution that works for everyone.
All right. That gives us enough time for a 1-minute closing statement from each of you. I want to thank you for all your answers to all your questions. Greatly appreciate them. And for closing statements, I will start with Ms. Miranda.
Thank you, Jason. I would just like to say to the 28th District residents that I have great concerns about the current representation we have now, and so should you. Upon reaching the State House, Mr. Deaver wasted absolutely no time enriching his law practice by legislation passed to benefit he and his real estate investors, looking to make a quick buck off the back of our taxpayers in wasteless thousands of dollars of personal people's funds for real estate seminars. I serve the middle and working class families of our district in my current business and in my current local elected seat, and I have no interest in enriching my business. My only interest is serving the 28th District families with integrity, and I can assure you when you elect me this November, you will be electing a strong, compassionate mother of 3, a loving wife, and a small business entrepreneur that built my small business from the ground up here within my local community, providing jobs to local taxpayers. And I'm a tough locally elected official that fights every day for the families of the 20th District. So this November, give me the chance, send me to Columbus to the State House to fight for you, and elect Jessica Miranda as your next state representative. And I promise you I will serve you, and it will be a breath of fresh air versus the current representation you have now.
Thank you. 1 minute for closing statement.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you to the Waycross community. It has been a great privilege and honor to serve the folks of the 28th. The one thing that I'm deeply pleased with is the results that we've provided for the 28th. Since you have granted me the stewardship of this position, we've gotten more done for this district than the last 3 members combined. We fought for our disability community and passed groundbreaking legislation that's the first of its kind in the country called the ABLE Act, giving folks with a disability the opportunity to rise up and out of poverty. We did pass comprehensive foreclosure reform so that the neighborhoods that you live in right now, where that house is abandoned next door to you, that has the copper torn out, where the drug dealers are going in the middle of the night, your now elected officials can do something about it for the very first time. We also gave homeowners the power to stay in their home and realize their American dream when they're meeting hard times by getting it refinanced within a 2-year window and staying there as a tenant rather than being forced out onto the street. We've reformed the way we do our public education, and we've reformed the way we do business in Ohio, and we're cutting taxes at the same time and providing more resources for those who truly need it. My name is Jonathan Deaver. I am your state representative, and I would be honored to serve you another term.
Thank you. I want to thank both of you for joining us this evening. It has been an honor as well to be able to give the information to the 28th District. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
I'd also like to thank all of you for joining us as well. We've given you the information, and you've had the opportunity to listen to those who are running for the 28th District. Now it is up to you to make that informed decision. The best place to go is, of course, listening and watching all of the Waycross election forums that are going to continue throughout the month of October. And you can also get information from the Board of Election itself at votehamiltoncounty.org. There you will get all the information you need. Remember, early voting does begin starting in October 7th. But of course, the most important thing is that you've gotten the information. Please use that information and vote responsibly this November 8th. Thank you and have a great evening.
Waycross takes no position on candidates or issues. We do these forums so that our residents may be better informed voters for the November 8th election.